Because we also believe that brands are multidimensional, just as human beings are.
Sure.
Right?
Yeah.
So we are multidimensional. We are seen in a certain way by our close friends. We are seen in another way by our family, close family. We've seen in a third way by our colleagues and associates, right? So we are multidimensional, and brands also need to express themselves in different ways depending on the environment that they are in.
Welcome to Audio Branding, the hidden gem of marketing. Sound plays a more important role in human behavior and our decision-making than you may realize. In this podcast, I'll help you understand the art and science of sound so you can better influence others in business and your life. I'm your host, Jody Krangle. Let's delve a little deeper. This is the first part of my interview with Rajeev Raja. My next guest is the ex-national creative director of ad agency DDB India. He's also one of India's finest jazz and fusion flautists, with an album on the iTunes India charts that reached #1 and stayed there for 3 weeks running. He's the founder and soundsmith of BrandMusiq, Asia's first company dedicated to designing and managing the sonic identity of a brand, and is a creative powerhouse who straddles the two worlds of brands and music. Over 25 years in advertising, he worked on many of India's and the world's top brands, creating nationwide campaigns which have won him many accolades and awards. With these strong credentials in music and branding, it was only natural that Rajeev Raja founded BrandMusiq, a wonderful example of how one's passion can become one's life work. Listen in as we discuss the power of sound, how it can make a brand more memorable, and how it can touch and influence our emotions on a daily basis. Well, thank you so much for joining me, Rajeev. I'm really excited to talk with you today, and this has been a bit of a while coming, actually, because I guess we've known each other on LinkedIn for a little bit.
Yeah, absolutely.
Sort of passing in the night.
Yes. Sort of sonic waves passing in the night.
Yes, exactly. Yeah. So I love what you put out there on LinkedIn, and I was really excited to get to talk to you more about that, but also about your music, because that's part and parcel of everything you do.
Yeah,
so.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, the first question that I want to ask is about an early sound, an early memory of sound that moved you. I kind of ask all of my guests this because I like getting into the psyche of why sound is important to you.
Right.
So out of curiosity, do you have a moment like that?
Yeah, absolutely. I remember when I was a kid, in those days, we used to have the good old LP records, and my mother was a dancer.
Oh, okay.
Right, like an Indian classical dancer.
Mm-hmm.
And so she used to listen to a lot of these classical tunes, Indian classical tunes, on the record player. And I remember, sort of listening to that and sort of dancing along, and obviously everybody amused by my antics. But
that's great.
Yeah,
though.
so I always remember our home being full of music, and so just listening to music, and then of course getting exposed to the pop music of the world and early jazz, Louis Armstrong, etc., etc.
Oh, nice.
So it is quite an eclectic.
One of my favorites too.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. Wow. It's always nice having that musical background in the very beginning of things. I think it gives us, those of us who are lucky enough to experience that, I think it gives us a really nice start on
absolutely
how the world operates sonically.
Yeah.
Yeah. Really fun. So I guess the way that you got interested in music yourself was through listening to your mom's dance songs and growing up with that music.
Yes.
So you're a flautist, right?
That's right. That's right. Yeah.
How did you get into that?
Oh, that's a crazy story, because I never, looked at myself as a musician, or taking it up as a profession or anything like that. I just loved music. And like, any normal teenager used to hang out and, sing along, etc., etc. I used to play a little bit of the mouth organ,
Okay.
the mouth harp.
Yeah.
And I just sort of picked it up. And actually, a crazy thing happened. I was a cricketer in my college days. Now, obviously, cricket is not something you all know that side of the world, but
Not usually, no.
but
I know what it is.
yeah, exactly. It's a little more in the way the British typically complicate things. It's a little more complicated version of baseball. Let's put it that way.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
Sure.
I was a pretty good cricketer and with aspirations to play for the state, etc. When suddenly I got a very bad back problem.
Oh, no.
And this was at the age of 17.
Oh, wow.
And I had to stop playing cricket completely for 2 years, right?
Oh, wow.
Because
Okay.
it was pretty bad. It was pretty bad. And so I used to take the mouth organ to my college. And, just in the breaks, etc., hang around, and I used to just play a little. And this guy came up to me. His name is Roshan. And I still remember he had a little goatee, beard and
Okay.
those horn-rimmed glasses. And he came up to me and he said, "Hey man, that's pretty cool. You ever heard of the blues?" So I really hadn't heard of the blues. I only knew tunes like Sunday Morning, Up
Yeah.
with the Lark. I
Yeah.
think, or a Hindi Bollywood, kind of song.
Sure, yeah.
And he said, hey, come on, let's jam, man. I'll show you a blues sequence. And he started playing like a 12-bar blues sequence. And even though I had never really heard the blues, I sort of, by ear, I started picking it up and just sort of jamming with him, right?
Mm-hmm.
And Roshan really was instrumental, pun intended, in me finding my way to the flute. Because one day he came to me and he said, "Hey man, the mouth harp is limiting, especially if you want to move into jazz, etc. So why don't you, I've got a 2 rupee bamboo flute at home, why don't you check it out?"
Okay.
And you won't believe it, I picked up the flute and he had taught me the melody of Summertime. So I could, just by ear, I could immediately play it.
Nice.
So it was as if, like I found the flute, but the flute found me,
Sure, yeah. Well, I guess you had the
So-
mouth positions already down pat with the mouth organ,
Yeah,
so
possibly,
Yeah, yeah.
that may have helped, but I just picked it up and then we started doing the rounds or the college circuit and the competitions.
Okay.
Me playing on a bamboo flute, but after some time when we started moving to a few more jazz compositions, with lots of chord changes, etc. And
Sure.
there I found the bamboo flute a little limiting because it's not built. It's built more for our Indian system, which is more linear.
Oh, okay.
And doesn't have harmonic changes like the Western system has. The chord changes, shifting tonal centers really. So I moved on then to the concert flute.
Okay.
And again, a friend of mine, his brother was going to Singapore. You didn't get concert flutes in those days in India, and was going to Singapore, and he brought me a cheap concert flute. And I actually sat down and sort of figured out the notes: C, C sharp, D,
Yeah.
E flat, etc., etc. And then I started learning lots of jazz tunes and jazz compositions and Indian fusion, and so that's really where the whole journey with the flute began, and it's never left me since. I've just been blessed, I guess.
That's wonderful, though. That's
Yeah.
and I know a couple of other flautists, and I can say from talking with them, there is no such thing as a cheap concert flute.
Yeah, you're right. Oh my God.
They're
The one
pretty
I have
pricey.
currently. Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, it's unbelievable. It's unbelievable.
Yeah. Wow. But I mean, if you know how to play it, that's the point, right?
Yeah. Wow. It's a
Yeah.
beautiful instrument. Very
yeah.
difficult, challenging instrument, but beautiful instrument.
Yes, definitely. I mean, I love hearing flute. It's just such a beautiful sound. So going on from that, I mean, so you went from your music to then starting BrandMusiq.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
So I'm gathering, and I could be just making things up here, and you could tell me if I'm not, if I am. But it seems to me like you found a link between music and emotions and wanted to make that more of a thing for brands.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely.
So how did BrandMusiq come about?
Yeah, so, there's a 25-year gap between me discovering the flute and me starting BrandMusiq.
Okay, wow.
So when I got out of college, I used to be a pretty creative kind of guy. I used to write stuff, and I used to act in little, theater and etc. And my professor actually came up to me and said, a friend of mine runs an ad agency, and he's looking for guys like you. So why don't you, just go and meet him? So, I finished college, and I wasn't sure whether I wanted to take up music professionally.
Okay.
Because especially since I was more interested in the Western music space, and making a living out of that in India at the time was probably not the best thing.
Yeah.
So I actually just went to this ad agency and I got a job. And one thing led to the other, and then I moved I was born and brought up in Bangalore, which is known today as the Silicon Valley of India.
Okay.
Yeah, a lot
That's
of tech
good.
stuff happening there.
Yeah.
But it was a sleepy old town when I was growing up, beautiful. It was called the pensioner's paradise. And then, then I moved to Mumbai, which is like New York, right?
Oh, okay.
I mean, Mumbai is rocking. Mumbai is like the place, especially for media, entertainment, communication, Bollywood. Mumbai is the place.
Sure.
So I got a job in a very big agency in Mumbai as a copywriter. And I spent the next 25 years of my life in advertising, finally ending up as a creative director, national creative director at DDB.
Okay.
Right?
Yeah.
In India. But I kept my music going on right through my journey in advertising. And thank God I did. I guess I just couldn't give up music. I mean, there was no question of letting
Why
my
would you give it
work-
up?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right. So it was crazy. Along the way, music, advertising, brands. I got married, beautiful wife, 2 beautiful daughters.
Yeah.
So all good. But about 10 years ago, I had this moment of angst, really, where I used to still play concerts, right? And there was a particular concert that I was playing with some real heavy dudes who were all full-time musicians. And I wasn't technically a full-time musician because I had to spend my day in advertising and often nights in advertising. So I found that I was getting a little challenged in playing the way I wanted to. What I was hearing in my head, I wasn't able to express just because of lack of practice, really. And the amount of time that I could spend on the flute. And, as it gets higher, it's pretty brutal out there. Hey, if you ain't got the chops, man, what are you doing here? Right?
Unfortunately, yeah.
Yeah. So that was a moment where I found that I wasn't cutting it. And I said, man, I got to choose. Is it going to be music for the rest of my life? Or am I going to say, hey, I'm very happy in advertising. There's a fat, paycheck coming in every month into the bank.
Sure. I mean,
should I, it's great. We can take our trips abroad with the family every year for holidays, etc. Versus music. So, I had a conversation with my family, and I said, look, I need to quit. I need to quit my advertising job, and I'm going to start over with music. And I want to play. That's the artistic side of me. I want to perform. But how do I also monetize my passion? Because I couldn't leave the family in the lurch by suddenly taking my flute and, taking off like the Grateful Dead in a van, and touring around the country.
Might be a bit of a problem.
Yeah, exactly.
just a little.
So that's where this whole idea began of monetizing my passion. And I've worked for 25 years with global brands with local Indian brands, with iconic Indian brands, and therefore know the brand language, know how the marketing world thinks, and I'm able to understand their language and understand brands. And at the same time, I had kept one foot firmly planted in the world of music. I hadn't let go.
Yeah.
So that's where this whole thought began. Can we elevate music to a higher level compared to the way it was used generally, which is a good old jingle that happens, on a radio spot or a TV spot, but really doesn't reflect the essence of the brand.
That's a good point.
And we said, can we look, deeper and start creating a sonic identity system that very much like brands have, every brand has a visual identity, right? So a brand has a logo, it has a set of colors that is associated with it, a font, style, etc. And this is created with a lot of rigor, a lot of thought. They go to a specialist visual identity design agency, and it actually comes from what the brand stands for, the essence of the brand, the culture it's operating in, the competition. It's a much deeper thought process. And we said, can we bring the same rigor to music and create identity systems for brands? And that's really where, it sparked off BrandMusiq. And we said in India and actually in Asia, we're still the only really specialized sonic branding agency.
Wow.
Yeah, we said let's appropriate the generic brand music as a name. Right?
Sure. I mean, tell it like it is, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Easier to remember that way.
Yeah.
Are you looking for ways to improve your company's or podcast's impact? You'd be surprised how powerful the use of an intentional audio branding strategy can be. Want to know more? I have a free downloadable PDF that gives you my 5 tips for implementing an intentional audio strategy at voiceoversandvocals.com/audio-branding-strategy. That location does ask to put you on a mailing list, just to send you updates on when the new podcasts come out. But if you really don't want to give your email out, I understand. Just contact me directly. My email is all over my website, and I'll make sure you get that PDF without needing to sign up anywhere. If you do sign up, though, you also get access to a resources section called The Studio, where I have videos, white papers, and PDFs, discounts from my guests, and snippets of audio from my guests that no one else gets to hear. So maybe it's worth your while. Totally up to you. And of course, if you're looking for voiceovers, you can get in touch with me about that too. Now, back to the podcast.
So that's where the whole journey began. We created a term we call MOGO, or short form for musical logo. And today it's actually getting into sort of global parlance, and we are getting calls from, global brands also saying, hey, we want a MOGO. Right? So
That's great.
yes.
Yeah.
Then I guess to answer your question of music and emotions,
Ah,
I think that is very key to our process, because in India we are known as a very sort of emotional culture, right? So and you can see it in Bollywood itself. If you see a Bollywood film, there are at least 5 songs,
yes.
if not more.
Yeah. And lots of dancing too, which I appreciate
A lot of
as well.
dancing,
Yes.
exactly. So ours is a very oral culture. So even the way we learn music is, for example, our tabla players, that's the rhythmic instrument of India, there is a saying, if you can say it, you can play it.
Okay.
So they learn it actually orally. They learn all the rhythmic patterns orally, So takita 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 tarantom takadimitom takadimitom. That's they learn to say it, and then they learn to play it. So it's a very oral tradition, and therefore emotions are very strongly linked to how we perceive music, and we build that as a strong part of our process.
Yeah.
And if you've got, what I'd like to do is actually play something for you,
Oh, by all means. Yeah, please do.
which would demonstrate how music, triggers particular emotions.
Sure.
Right?
Yeah.
So what I'm going to do is, it's a short piece. I'll play, it's about 45 seconds. And I want you to just close your eyes
Okay.
and go where the music takes you. You'll probably see some imagery. You may feel some emotions. It may trigger some memories. But just go with the flow. Don't try and analyze the music too much. Just feel it. Yeah?
Go for
okay.
it. Yeah.
So here goes.
Okay.
So eyes closed. Eyes closed. That's important.
Okay.
Here goes.
Yep. That's really beautiful.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Do you want to tell me, what did you feel? Did you see any imagery? There's no right or wrong answer.
Well, no,
Anything that came
yeah,
into
it was very happy. It was very
Right.
like warm and happy, and I kind of thought of like a bustling market in springtime or something like that. Like it kind
Wow.
that's kind
Yeah.
of what
Yeah.
the vibe I was getting there. But yeah, well, I don't know. That was just where I went with it, but I'm sure everyone else has their own context.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's really, the area that we've been experimenting. There is a context that is personal, but there's also a common experience that everybody goes through, whoever hears this. So, I'm sure whoever listens to this particular conversation and hears this piece, if they close their eyes and they go through the same experience, I can guarantee that most of them will feel very calm, will feel very content. And at the same time, they will also probably see, you said springtime, so that's nature.
Yeah, I was thinking colorful.
Exactly.
It sounded colorful to me. Yeah.
Colorful, nature, greenery. A lot of people see water bodies, people playing, children playing, etc. So it's a very happy kind of feeling. And there is a reason that everybody's feeling like this. It's not by accident, it's by design.
Okay.
So this particular scale that I used is, in Western terms, it's called a pentatonic scale, which is very simple, penta, so it's 5 notes, right? So the scale only uses these 5 notes. That's it. And this is a composition of mine called Peace. And I've used these notes in a way to evoke the kind of emotion that you're feeling, right?
Okay.
So
yeah.
it's guaranteed that everybody who listens to this will feel a certain zone of emotion. And if I just take the first 3 notes of this scale and I change only the 3rd note, you'll suddenly get a different feeling, right?
Yes.
So let me play the first 3 notes. Now I'm changing only the 3rd note. Right?
Yeah.
Did you feel a little sense of melancholy?
Yeah,
creeping
because
in?
it makes it
Yeah.
a minor key, like a minor chord
Exactly.
instead of
Exactly. So,
Yeah.
that's really where our journey began. We said there is a science of sound. And, if we are able to understand this science of sound, now, in our Indian tradition, there's a very rich tradition of something called ragas. Okay? So, ragas are not really scales, but they are moods, really, which can evoke even times of day. So if an Indian classical musician plays a concert early morning, there are a set of ragas that he will use early morning, or scales, right? And they evoke that time of day. Vis-a-vis, if he plays it in the late afternoon or late evening, there are different sets of scales that he would use or ragas that he would use.
Interesting.
So there is rich tradition and there is a science behind this in our Indian culture. And so also, if you listen to the great Western composers, you will see they knew that the use of a certain scale or combination of scale, major versus minor, etc., would evoke certain emotions, right? So we said if we are able to actually map the scales and broadly classify them, of course you can't classify all the scales in the world, but
It's hard,
if
yeah.
you could broadly classify them and cluster them and match them with the emotions that they generate, right? And add also the filter of the brand character.
I was going to ask you.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because, I mean, how do you translate into helping a brand discover what sound they should be using to share their brand DNA with the world?
Exactly. So the good old Carl Jung actually, had this well thought out when he created the whole concept of archetypes.
Yes.
And, so he actually created this entire theory saying that there are 12 primary archetypes and human beings fall into those kind of archetypes. Now, the beauty is, so also can brands, right? So there could be a ruler brand, there could be a hero brand, there could be a caregiver brand. So, for example, Mercedes is a ruler brand. If you look at a caregiver brand, it's J&J Baby.
Okay, sure.
So now, if we were to just look at the sonic templates that already exist in our consciousness, right? To a ruler would always be expressed musically and sonically in a very majestic, manner which has a lot of scale. So ba 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 bum ba 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 bum ba 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 bum. Right?
Yeah.
That's a ruler. Now, if we were to look at the character, okay, this is the kind of ruler sound, but we say, hey, now let's add in the filter of emotion too. What does this ruler want to evoke in the minds and hearts of those who are listening to him? Does the ruler want to evoke a sense of respect and authority? Or does the ruler want to evoke a sense of caring? Saying, hey, I'm a ruler, but I care for you, right? Or is the ruler wanting to express a sense of wisdom, a sage-like kind of feeling, right? Now, that's exactly how it translates into music.
Okay.
So a ruler, there will be something about a ruler sound, but perhaps you'd start breaking it up into rhythmic patterns, into harmonic patterns, into melodic patterns, and then say, okay, let's keep the bed of the ruler with a rhythmic pattern where we get the scale, but he wants to come through as caring. So now let's deliver that through the melody, where we will add a voice humming a very caring kind of. So if the drums are going da 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 dun da da, the voice can go right.
Yeah.
So this is how we merge brand character and brand emotion. So we have a very interesting theory in India called the Rasas. They say there are 9 principal rasas or emotions that any artist would use, because all human beings experience these emotions. So the emotions range from love to laughter to caring to fear to anger to courage, etc. So we actually then go and try and express what the brand wants to evoke. We understand so it's essentially understanding the DNA of the brand and then creating the DNA of its sound, creating its sonic DNA.
I I know that we're all dealing with a lot of stuff these days, so I particularly wanted to acknowledge those that have taken the time to leave honest reviews of this podcast. Like Elaine Grant, who called the show insightful, practical, eye-opening. As a veteran public radio producer and host, she says, and now an entrepreneur running a podcast consultancy, I thought I knew about the world of audio. Truth is, I knew just a small slice of this big and important world. I've learned so much from every episode. I need to re-listen and furiously take notes. I can't recommend audio branding highly enough. Thank you for taking the time to leave your comment, Elaine. It means so much to me. And now, back to the show. This is something that I've actually talked about before in that it's what emotion do you want your audience to feel? What do you want the people experiencing your brand to feel when they hear you? So
Exactly.
yeah.
Exactly.
I love that you merge them all. That's really an interesting idea. So you decide what emotion you want people to feel, and then it could be more than one. It's not just one, archetype. It's
Exactly.
a whole bunch of them in together, and that's what makes them individual, I would imagine.
Exactly. Because we also believe that brands are multidimensional, just as human beings are.
Sure.
Right?
Yeah.
So we are multidimensional. We are seen in a certain way by our close friends. We are seen in another way by our family, close family. We've seen in a third way by our colleagues and associates, right? So we are multidimensional, and brands also need to express themselves in different ways depending on the environment that they are in.
Very true. Yeah.
That is our absolute belief. So if you take, say, one of the sonic identities that we created for MasterCard, right? Now it's a global brand. It's so diverse in its target audience is so diverse. You're talking of diversity across cultures. You're talking of diversity across age, language, etc. So they have to appeal to all age segments, all psychographic segments. So for example, we created their master sound, but if they want to appeal to the younger generation, then how does that sort of play out, right? Or if they want to appeal to families, how does that play out? Now, the beauty is once you've created your sonic identity, of which the MOGO or musical logo, as we said, is a big part of, then you can actually start creating different adaptations with these different emotions, right? So the brand can still show its caring in a certain context. Mm-hmm. It can show it's vibrant and dynamic in another context. It can show it's technologically futuristic in a third context, but all coming from the same, DNA and expressed according. So it's flexible, but at the same time there is one theme that is constantly played. So it's one brand, but with many expressions.
I love that. That's really interesting too. I'm curious as to what the different musical expressions are, I guess, when you're going from, say, young people to families or futuristic. I mean, is there a particular instrument that you change? Is it because MasterCard, is it a series of 5 notes? Is that what it is? It's those 5 notes that they've adopted as their MOGO, I guess?
Right. Yeah.
And then those are adapted depending on where it's being used. So geographically and to what audience.
Yes.
So there's a lot of factors here. I mean,
there are a lot of factors. Yeah.
Yeah. How do you change that?
it's fascinating because, at one level, there is what we call the master brand, right? And that is the global brand that means one thing to everybody across the globe. Now, the way we approach it is we do not start with the MOGO. Right? We believe in starting with a MOGO-scape, which is a larger 90-second composition for the brand.
Oh, okay.
Right? So we believe that music is about emotion, and it is music that triggers our memory structures. For example, if you listen to the opening bars of the Beatles' Here Comes the Sun, you don't need to hear the rest of the tune to remember where you were when you first heard it, and for all those memories to start coming flooding back.
Mm-hmm.
but there is the whole piece of music, that evokes a certain feeling in you. And therefore, we create the sonic palette for the brand, which we call the Mogoscape. And embedded within that is the Mogo, which we extract.
I see.
Right?
Okay.
Let's call it a master Mogo for the master brand.
Okay.
So wherever MasterCard is maybe using your master brand communication, then you would be using the Mogo. The Mogo also becomes consistent at the end of every television commercial or content, etc. So wherever the logo appears, the Mogo also appears or is heard. Right?
Yeah.
But the field of sound, the sonic palette, can keep changing according to the culture, according to the occasion. So MasterCard's melody is very simple. Ta-ra-ra-ra-ra-ra, ta-ra-ra-ra-ra-ra, right?
Yeah.
Now, the Mogo is ta-ra-ra-ra-ra-ra, okay? But if
Okay.
you listen to the entire melody structure, the melody structure is ta-ra-ra-ra-ra-ra, 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 ta-ra-ra, ta-ra-ra-ra-ra-ra. Okay. Now, this
Okay.
is the melody structure, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Now, imagine taking this melody structure and creating a version for the Middle East where you'd use the oud, the instrument of the Middle East.
Sure.
Or imagine taking the same melodic structure and creating it for Latin America.
Yeah. Yeah, I love it. Sure.
Now this is what we did. So we created all these templates and created the entire sonic identity system. So anybody who uses MasterCard across the world now actually have an idea of how to take the fundamental elements of the sonic identity system, which is the Mogoscape, the Mogo, and we also created a confirmation sound, which is what we call a mini Mogo.
Oh, yeah,
Right?
because they need one of those, definitely.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So when their payments go through, for example, on Alexa, there's no possibility of visual branding, right? So it's the sonic branding that says that, hey, your payment has gone through, right? And that's 1.5 seconds, the mini Mogo. So it was fascinating because then, there were versions created for South Africa, there were versions created for China, but all coming from this fundamental melodic construct of the Mogoscape,
Yeah.
And
yeah. Really impressive, actually.
yeah, it's an amazing exercise. It was an
Yeah.
amazing exercise, and
I love it.
great for us. I think everybody needs a big break like this, and so yeah.
Sure. Well, congratulations, first of all, because it's beautiful
Thank
work.
you. Thank you.
And I mean,
Thank
obviously
you.
they love it because they're still using it.
Yeah,
So-
absolutely.
I think
And-
ultimately it saves them a lot of money in the end too, because they don't have to be
course.
buying all sorts of other music to put on their
Exactly.
assets. It's all just there.
Exactly. Yeah.
So it's a great thing for a brand to think about the sound that they have. This has been part 1 of our interview. I hope you'll tune in next week for part 2. Well, that's the end of this episode. Thanks for listening. And if you like what you heard, why not tell a friend about this podcast? It's available in all the usual locations. Until next time.